I want to move on now to, speaking of net zero and climate, I just love this. A new study has claimed that rising temperatures driven by, yes, you guessed it, climate change will lead to an additional 72,000 crimes per year in Australia. The paper is titled Crime, Weather and Climate Change in Australia and found that an increase in the number of days over 30 degrees was linked to a higher crime rate. Jonathan, this seems like a bit of a long bow here. I don't know. I sort of feel like when it's over 30 degrees, I don't really feel like doing much less going out and committing crimes. What do you make of this report?
Oh, it's nonsense, James. I mean, this is ridiculous. The last person who blamed anything on the weather was Milli Vanilli, who blamed it on the rain. But we have to see more personal responsibility. Yet to have people producing reports that if you're going to commit a crime, it's probably because of the weather. I mean, that's a nonsense argument. To suggest that we now must act on climate change because it's going to cause a surge in occurrences of crime, I think is an absolute ridiculous argument to make. I'd love to meet the scientists who have penned this report, but it is just something I wouldn't probably advise many people to waste their time on reading, because it's like a lot of the other science that's out there behind some of these claims. It is just made up.
No, yeah, and I'm just looking forward to the day when somebody goes to a judge and says, oh, look, the lawyer says, you know, it was climate change what done it, Your Honor. But anyway, another fascinating story here today. Indigenous leader Gerhard Pearson has accused the former Queensland Labor government of, get this, rushing to nominate Cape York for a World Heritage listing ahead of last year's election. Now, the state LNP Environment Minister has now ordered a review of the nomination after Indigenous groups claimed there has been a lack of consultation. And Mr. Pearson told the Weekend Australian, quote, this was a scurrilous exercise by ministers and their conservation champions to use the state election to run over the top of the people of Cape York. Well, for Premier Stephen Miles says there's been 15 years of consultation. Is he wrong?
Is absolutely wrong, and you only have to talk to the people on the ground that point out that there was no such consultation at all. This is a typical play by the Labor Party. I mean, they did it in Canberra with the Blaney gold mine. They just rode roughshod over the top of the local Indigenous community there to stop a $1 billion gold mine, and it appears Stephen Miles has gone and ridden roughshod over the local traditional owners in Cape York to put forward this listing. It's the capital cities knows best approach. And what is the oddest part about this, James, is these people who are doing this are the same people who proposed a voice so that these people could be listened to and they could have a say. Well, I question how serious that proposition was when you've got those proponents of the voice out there telling those Indigenous communities what they think is best for them. It's a little bit ridiculous to say that you're all about empowering Indigenous communities, but on the other hand, going and doing what you think is best and what they need on their behalf.
Well, this is, becoming a bit of a trend here. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the Blaney gold mine, but there's also been a story now that local councils here in New South Wales have been accused of weaponizing heritage laws to block housing projects after 1,215 sites were added to heritage registers in just 5 years. What about just using general heritage listing processes? Where does, you've got a housing crisis, here. How does, and I know a lot of this sort of state stuff, but clearly this is going to be a federal issue as well come the election. Does all of this stuff need to be reviewed?
No, absolutely it does. I mean, we're talking about spending billions and billions of dollars to build houses, and to date, in this term of government, none have been built. And the best thing we could do is change the laws. To have a quick review, figure out what the problems are and change the laws. I mean, federally, you've got tens of thousands of homes held up under the EPBC Act because of federal environmental approvals delaying the ability for these projects to go ahead. You've got state laws doing the same, and now you've got local government putting their oar in the water to do what they can to hold things up too. And seriously, we should all be pulling in the same direction. People are doing it tough. You've got new home buyers who want to be able to get into the market. Nothing is helping them get in, and this waste of taxpayers' money to try and build homes when your laws are stopping them from being built just points to the need for reform. Regulatory and legal reform, that's all that needs to happen here.
get the government out of the way and let things happen. Jonathan Dunham, very well said. Thank you so much for your time here on Credit.